Triple E EDC back again with another knife video. So I know it's been a while since I posted, guys. I was in the hospital dealing with the Jewish holidays also. It's been just kind of a whirlwind trying to get back at work and catching up from being out so much. So the videos sort of went on hiatus for about 2-3 weeks. Sorry about that, guys, but we're back. Top 5. We're going to do the top 5 user knives. This is a tag video that was going around that I believe Pete from Cedric and Ada started. I believe that's who started it. And it went around the community. It caught on like wildfire, and I really enjoyed watching everyone else's videos. Meanwhile, thinking, man, I wish I could just go ahead and record my own. So we're going to do that now. I don't think I was tagged in anyone's videos, but not a big deal. If you haven't been tagged, go ahead and make a video. I'm tagging open tag, right? So these are two. These are going to be two honorable mentions here, and the reason I'm going to talk about honorable mentions is really two main things. One is I'm not going to be doing budget knives as part of this. Now, the Civivi Praxis is one of my absolute favorite budget knives out there, and as far as like a beater knife that I don't mind if it gets beat up, this is actually probably my third Praxis. That's why it looks like it's in good condition. You know, I beat the hell out of a few of them. I sold one as a user, and I think I gave one to a friend. So actually this is my fourth. So yeah, I've had a few Praxises. They're only $42, so great deal. And there's some versions that are nicer. And yeah, it's just a great knife for a great deal. But I'm considering user knives in this video as being something over $100. The reason I sort of decided to do that is not because knives under $100 can't be user knives, they for sure can, but because a lot of people will do top 5 beater knives, types of things, and I don't want too much crossover between those. That's really the issue. A lot of people will use the budget range knives as beater knives because of the price, essentially, right? Next honorable mention is going to be this guy, the Hogue Sig Sauer K320. So this knife has absolutely blown me away since I've gotten it. This is really, it's just slightly more expensive than a base Griptilian, and it really has excellent ergonomics. The grip on here feels great, like just excellent. I don't mind the fact that this is plastic handles, which is not the norm when I have a plastic handle knife. And the blade shape on this is just really useful, and it has, the axis lock. It's also got the hole here, which is a lot of fun to deploy after you get, after you get used to it, because you're used to thumb studs on an axis lock, right? Or they call it the able lock for Hogue, but yeah, this is excellent in hand. I have size large glove size hands, and this thing is just killer. Why am I making this an honorable mention? Because it pretty much was my number 6, right? It pretty much was my number 6, and the reason I thought that was significant is because this is just an excellent knife, and it's a newer knife. It's something that's sort of not a lot of knives have been able to rival the Griptilian as far as being in that sort of harder use user knife category in that price range with a really good steel. This, of course, is CPM S30V. So the Griptilians are also S30V. So you have a steel that rivals it. You have the materials that rival it. The build quality may actually be even slightly better than the Griptilian. The clip isn't as good, but that's okay. But overall, this is just an excellent knife, and it almost knocked off my, 1 or 2 of my top 5, but they were just too good to knock off. So this is my number 6, essentially, and an honorable mention. Let's go ahead and go through the top 5. I have not sort of predetermined an order beforehand, so I'm just going to pull them out in an order that I think, sort of best suits them. So first of all, I'm going to show you guys the Spyderco Shaman. So this is obviously not a base Shaman. This is the Cru-Wear Shaman with zircuti scales and lynch clip here. So you know, but this is, even the base model, I'm really judging this off the base model. The base model is, you know, a pretty good deal, just over $200. They used to be, you know, when they first came out, they were like $150. They've had a couple price hikes since then. But this is just, it's just a really, really good knife. It's nice and thick in the handle, has excellent ergonomics. The ergonomics on this are one of the best, even better than the K320 that I just showed you guys. Just excellent ergonomics in both this position, although I don't prefer this position, and this position. The ergonomics are excellent. The choke-up position is the position I prefer. It does have the compression lock, which is great, and you know, you get that nice slow rollout with the thumb, or you can do your nice Spidey flicks. But this video is not about fidgetability or ergonomics. This is about just a user knife, and that, well, that slightly has to do with ergonomics and slightly has to do with the blade. So the blade on this is great. It's sort of their leaf shape, but really it's kind of a spear point, which I find to be one of the most useful blade shapes out there. And the stock on this is nice and thick, which I think is good, but because it's a near full flat grind, you can see it doesn't go all the way up, but it goes most of the way up. This is a near full flat grind. It gets decently thin behind the edge for how thick the stock is. And but because the stock is so thick, I can't talk, because the stock is so thick, this is just a great knife for all sorts of around the house tasks, you know, stuff out in the yard, stuff, you know, when you're cutting stuff, zip ties off stuff, breaking down boxes. This is just an all-around knife. It's a user. It is a knife that you can use for most tasks because it is really, really versatile. In that regard, it's a lot like and most of these knives are sort of the same way. They're kind of a jack of all trades, which means they're not going to be the best slicers. They're not going to be, you know, the lightest carry in the pocket. But what they're going to be is just a really good all-around knife, right? And this definitely encompasses that. Okay, next we're going to bring up the, let's go with the Benchmade 940. So this is one of my favorite knives of all time, is the Benchmade 940. It gets a little bit of flack because, you know, some people have issues with Benchmade, but I enjoy it quite a bit. This is the M4 version, although it's a blade swapped. This is the Blade HQ exclusive that was blade swapped with the 940-1 carbon fiber scales. That allows for a fully blackout version of it. Now, I have a huge 940 collection. Some of you guys may know. I haven't really showed it on the channel yet. I do plan on doing that. I keep telling people that, but I really do. And this is one of the knives. So obviously, I carry several of my 940s. Some of them are, you know, safe queens because they're just so rare. But this one is definitely a user, and you can see the DLC on it. This has gotten actually quite a bit of use, and I put, you know, did a little magic eraser, and yeah, it looks pretty good, right? So the DLC cleans up nice, which is great. The M4 keeps an edge for a long time. You have decently thick stock here, really nice slim carry. The ergonomics are neutral, but very good. And, you know, this is just one of those knives where you're not worried like a PM2 of snapping the blade, right? You're not worried of if you have to wrench this with some sort of lateral force. You know, guys, don't use your knives to pry, but if you have to wrench this a little bit, it's fine, it works. The axis lock is a nice strong lock. It's nice and fidgety. It's an easy carry. It just really is a great all-around knife, and definitely highly recommend it. Next up, we have the AD-20. Now, this is a titanium version, obviously, so this is a little bit more expensive, and this is a pricey knife to begin with. They have the AD-20.5, which is in the lower price range. I'll admit, while I like the knife, I am not blown away as much by the AD-20.5 as I am by the AD-20. And I do not think the AD-20.5 is necessarily a hard use, like, user knife. The scales feel a little bit, the plastic on the scales, they have plastic like this, but the plastic feels much cheaper than the Hogue. But on the AD-20, this is titanium, and you know, obviously there's a G10 version that's $200 cheaper, but it's really nice in the hand, has a really good choke up position here. The blade is nice and thick and stout and heavy. I'm not worried about really, I mean, this is a tank of a knife, right? This is not something you're going to use to, you know, unless you did a regrind on it or something, really be the ultimate slicer. But this is one of those knives that's just, you can beat the hell out of it, and it keeps going, and it's not so much of a tank that it's a bear to carry, right? So that's why I like this one. That's why I carry it around quite a bit. This one is one of the ones that gets more use out of my collection, and it still looks great because you have that nice sort of stonewashed blade there. Doesn't pick up too many of the scratches, which I think is great. Next up, we have the Benchmade Freak, Super Freak. So I love this knife. The blade is super slicey. It's M4, which keeps an edge forever, is really super tough. So even though the stock on here is a little bit thinner, you really don't have any problems because the blade steel is tough, which is great. So it's not gonna, you know, unless you're using incredible lateral force on it, it's not gonna give you some of the same problems with chipping and breaking like you'll see in some, I see posted all the time like S30V or S90V or S125V blades, especially the Spyderco ones, because they have holes in them which create weak spots where they snap. No issues with this. I've used this to wrench things. I've used this on many zip ties. You know, you can see it's gotten used. This is Cerakote, so it's not DLC, so it does wear a little bit on the edge there, as you can see, but that just builds character. This is nice and light. This is really light for the size, I have to say. Really love this. Anytime that I'm doing something around the house or, you know, in the backyard, as long as it's not something wet, I'll go ahead and grab this. Sometimes with wet stuff, I want to keep that M4 away from it, but as long as you wipe it down, you should be okay. So anyway, Benchmade Super Freak. And last but certainly not least, the XM18. I have a few of them. This is the Spanto working finish flipperless version from DLT. This is a DLT exclusive in M390. M390 is, I think, just for DLT exclusives. And this is tri-way pivot with a textured titanium scale with the DLT exclusive Warhawk finish. I think it's a Warhawk finish. But yeah, this is a really cool knife. Even the regular version with the G10 scale is great, and I have a bunch of other ones. I have a Bowie blade. I have a Wharncliffe. You know, the XM18 is just an excellent all-around knife. Let me go ahead and grab a couple of those while I'm talking about it, just, you know, so we can talk about this knife in general, because it really is an amazing knife. So this is the Wharncliffe version. Let me go ahead and put this here. This is the Bowie version, the vintage series. I also have, you know, if you want to see what the G10 scales look like, right? The G10 scales are great. This is a skinny version. And this is going to be your slicer grind. This is going to be your Spanto, your Wharncliffe, and your Bowie. All of these are great users. All of them are excellent users. And they just are really ergonomic, really ergonomic. Again, size large gloved hands, and it just sort of melts in your hand. The jimping on here just gives it a working feel. It really feels working. It's not too rough. It's like perfect, the jimping on these. Just absolutely perfect. Some of these have choils you can choke up on, and some of the DLT exclusive ones don't have choils, as you can see here. You know, I just love the variety you get here. I love the fact that the scales are swappable. You know, that doesn't really have to do with its userness or usability, but it really is the ultimate user, because you have a nice thickness in the blade, really nice tolerances on this, really good, like, thick titanium, and, you know, thick materials, whether it's micarta. This happens to be a third-party micarta. The G10 from the factory, or the textured scales from the factory, the titanium scales from the factory. No matter what it is, these just give a rugged feel, and just when you're using them, you feel like you can use them for anything, right? And because they have sort of this utilitarian feel, especially these ones. In the Wharncliffe, the blade shape is obviously a little bit specialist, but especially the Spanto or the slicer grind, right? You're going to be able to use those in a wide variety of uses, and it just, you know, they're just awesome. And there's not much more to say. You know, I love the XM18, and out of all of my knives, when I have a project I'm working on, I end up grabbing these much of the time. Unless I need something super slicey, again, I'll grab this as much slicier. But you know, if I'm looking for something that just needs a little bit of stoutness, a little bit of sure feel, and ruggedness, this is my go-to. So that's my top 5. I know that was probably a little bit long-winded, but I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, if you haven't put one of these videos out, I'd love to see them. I think they're quite a bit of fun. Thanks so much.